live.
We're live. Okay, so it's been a while. Claire has been saying, and it probably has been a whole of 2, 3 weeks, 3 weeks probably. Um, and I want to have an open conversation. I want people to ask me lots of things. A lot of things been happening since I went to Ghana to find a second wife. Where polygyny, i.e., men having more than one wife, is really quite normal. A lot of the taxi drivers had more than one wife. Um, that's quite interesting. Um, I do like to start with a verse of the Quran, which I mentioned, I linked in the description. I always have a document, but this week's document is very short because I kind of wanted to be super open ended. And the thought that I want to share from the verse of the Quran, I'll roughly read it. It says, "O mankind, we have created for you from male and female, and we have made you into tribes and sub-tribes that you may know one another. Verily, the most honorable among you in the sight of Allah is the one who is most righteous among you. Surely Allah is all knowing, all aware." But there's always many takeaways from a verse of the Quran, but the takeaway and not very well translated idea is that God creates tribes and sub-tribes, or groups and subgroups, um, in humanity, and a lot of us are noticing them. I mean, have we ever talked about the north-south divide in terms of the north? People in the north think ahead long term, but are less happy because they're more individualistic. People in the south are kind of living for the day. They're more
Happy-go-lucky.
happy-go-lucky, but they don't really think too far ahead. They spend all their money today, sort of thing. Although they do save up a bit as well. That's another thing. But yeah, they don't really plan very well ahead, and that's what I've noticed anyway. So there are differences caused by the environment, and I would say God creates the environment. So um, yeah, that's how. I kind of feel like there's so many things to learn from different societies, which is one of the things I like about marrying cross culturally. I'm already married to an Arab, and Arab culture is very different to at least British and Pakistani culture. Um, but there's all, I think, just generally, I think there's something, if you, yeah, well, we're talking about passport bros, which is the movement to
You're a
find.
passport bro.
I'm a passport bro. I mean, I suppose I've been a passport bro for 20 years because I'm married cross culturally, but I think more a passport bro actually hunting for a wife, as it were, by going to another country. Whereas
Had
the
you been to
first,
Ghana before?
no. So absolutely epic, insane trip. Like even getting on the plane was insane because they said, well, the airline said I had to have a passport, no, sorry, a visa before I got on the plane, and I didn't. And I was telling them it was impossible from Jordan because we don't have a Ghanaian embassy to give out visas and stuff. So that was a big risk, especially since the flight was 3 o'clock in the morning. It's like the whole thing
Oh,
was insane.
right. What made you
So I
choose Ghana of all places?
great
You thought,
question. So yeah, so really important question. So I do things spiritually. Okay, so let me explain that. My dad was born in Ghana, not because he's really particularly African. It was because his dad, my grandfather, started a, let's say, a charity school. It's an Ahmadi Muslim school, and that itself, because I know some of the stories, were like insanely difficult tasks. Like there wasn't really a town at that time. There were no roads there. Everybody was saying it's impossible, and I thought it was a beautiful thing they did. My grandparents, um, like if you the more stories you hear, the more you might understand like what the foreign secretary and the president went to that school. One of the foreign secretaries, foreign secretaries and presidents. This is in 1952 or something. 54 they left, but 52 my dad was born there. um, and they had to live in a hut, and the foreign secretary used to sleep on the floor of that hut, that my grandparents, and they used to call like my grandmother mama or something like that, all sorts of like endearing things. Anyway, like it was it's something I don't like to say the word proud. I think proud is the wrong word. Just I like that they did it. I'm not sure what the right word would be. Proud seems to be the wrong word. Yeah, so I had a spiritual kind of connection there. I always knew about this. Like anytime I saw Ghanaians in London, I felt more drawn to them. They were more natural. I feel I like simple people closer to nature, more smiley people. I don't think in England, London, people smile too much. I mean, is that a negative way of looking at Londoners? But what do you think? Do Londoners smile a lot?
I don't know. I guess I don't expect them to smile at me. I don't complain particularly that they don't smile at me. Sometimes they are can be friendly and helpful. So
Yes.
not it's not one of my
It's
gripes
it's
about
not a thing
London.
you look out for. Like I remember, I think I was in talking to some of my students in London or something. I think no, I did a presentation to my one of my kids' classes about Islam or something, and I was talking about how I think in Jordan people smile at each other or talk to each other, and one of the kids said like, "Oh, why would you want some stranger to smile at you?" And so, but over here, you might have seen some of my videos. Uh, like you go to local corner shop, and
Yes, we get it that you will keep telling us that we're miserable and you're happy where you are, and keep
sure, you get the idea.
congratulating yourself on that. And this is your regular repetitions of how lucky you are and how unfortunate we are in London. Perhaps you'd like to get on with telling us about,
The
you
rest,
know,
okay, yeah, sure, okay. Um, yeah, so something to do with that, and that drew me to that, and then also there could be a number of other things. Like at one point, my first wife said, "Why don't you like?" I didn't have any luck finding a second wife for a while. I looked into Lebanon. Um, I looked to Syria. All these war-torn people who I thought I could take advantage of, but it didn't seem to work. That seemed to be too comfortable there or something. I'm not sure what. Um, then my wife said, "Why haven't you asked, search for somebody in Ghana?" Because she always knew that I had a, I don't know, connection with it. And then I thought, like, this might sound really racist, but I thought, oh, let's get a wife the opposite color of my current wife, black wife. I like the whole. It sounds terrible, but this is how I talk. Um, but and people in Ghana, they're kind of like not racist, but they call me white or something. Like they just
hmm hmm
I think a lot of people in poorer or I don't know non-Western countries, they're actually more racist, but not in a bad way. They just like categorize people like differently. So anyway, it's like something different. Let's go for it. Let's have some fun. Let's go to another country. Let's do kind of a sort of family spiritual pilgrimage at the same time. I always wanted to go to Ghana for so many years, and this was kind of the extra reason and push. So, yeah, that's why Ghana, I guess.
I mean, my experience of Ghanaians is that they're friendly and they're quite slender, aren't they? I mean, they're slightly like some Somalis. It's East Africa, isn't it?
It's
Is
West
Ghana East
Africa.
Africa?
Ghana's
It,
West Africa.
oh, okay.
Um, yeah.
And maybe,
Um,
okay, I guess I was thinking
yeah.
of a particular Ghanaian I know, and he's tall and slender. So
Yeah. I would
maybe I
say
got.
I, my kind of impression is that they're strong and fit. um I thought, okay, let's get a fit wife then, sort of thing, you know what I mean? And yeah, they seem to be quite muscular and stuff like that. And actually that's not really, I mean, that's kind of obvious kind of in a way, because we've talked about, or I've mentioned, how all the 100-meter race runners in the Olympics are all black, and whatever. Have we talked about that? I'm quite sure we talked about
Oh,
that.
yes. So,
Yeah,
so how
yeah.
old is your bride?
She's 30, 30.
Hmm. Hmm.
So that's an interesting question in itself. Like amongst the Ahmadi Muslims, they were, for the first week, they were cautious. They're like, who's this guy? We don't know him. And I think that's a really important thing to get across, that in monocultures, on one side, they're really excited about marrying a foreigner, but also they're used to knowing people really well, like really well in their communities and stuff like that. So it's kind of a bit of a challenge for them. Um, and so after the first week, I was like, oh, this is not working out. And this is me. And I like to describe it as my colonial upbringing. Like, I expect everything to, find a wife after 1 week. Like, why isn't anybody like saying yes to me? It's terrible.
And how many
And
did
it
you
is.
meet?
I met one,
Hmm.
and she said no because I said I don't want her to have a career, and I was like surprised that they even wanted a career. Um, so a lot of women work. It's like it's part of the culture. It's like there's loads of market store people doing all sorts of little jobs. But anyway, so I mean, the why am I going down this kind of discussion is because on the one day that um, I said, okay, I'm just going to find a person who's not part of this Ahmadiyya community that I'm part of. It was quite easy to find people. Like, I just start talking to people, and after 2 minutes, they'll be like, yeah, sure. Like, why don't we have a dinner or something like that? So I found an 18-year-old and a 22-year-old who, willing. The 18-year-old was like, oh, you have to ask my mum, and she's sick.
Very
Um,
sensible.
yeah, very sensible. She was a market store person, and then the day, just for the fun of it, even though I had already said yes to this nice lady I'm going to marry, inshallah, God willing, I just thought, okay, let's go to that same market store, and the mum was there, and I was like, I didn't say, are you interested, but I was kind of trying to gauge to what extent that the mum would be interested, and she was very interested. But I said, I've already found another very nice lady, but your daughter's very pretty. God willing, she'll find somebody else. But I was just intrigued to what extent that would work. And basically, the point is, and there was some other lady that I went to a restaurant, and I was just, I don't know. I mean, I could go into the conversation. I suppose it's interesting that after 2 minutes, somebody be willing to say, oh, yeah, we'll have dinner and talk about getting married, but it was something like, I was talking to her sister, and we were just talking about, I kind of started the conversation saying something like, oh, I'm looking for a second wife. And then they'll be talking about, like, what's the meaning of love or whatever. And I'll say, I don't really believe in love. I believe in responsibility and stuff like that. We just make some kind of conversation. But very quickly, you could say, they said, oh, I was like, I got the idea that she wasn't married. And then very quickly, I checked that her sister was married or not. And you can ask quite directly. And so, are you married? And then, would you be interested in marrying a foreigner like me? What do you think about having dinner? Let's exchange numbers, and that's like in the space of 1 or 2 minutes.
Hmm.
So people are very open. Not, yeah, I don't know. It's quite easy. I wouldn't imagine you could do that in a British society. That'd be considered really rude, isn't it?
Yeah, but I mean, I guess she'd be prepared to, have dinner with you or something, if she were a Londoner. So she's not an Ahmadi.
So
Is
these
that?
people are not Ahmadi who are willing, who are interested. Um, and there were some other people, like, some market store people had asked roughly before, but I wasn't that interested. But just kind of getting feelers for stuff. I'd talk to a market store man, and I'd say, you know, um, I'm looking for a second wife or something, and say, oh, what about my sister? That kind of thing. So whatever, yeah. So
Mhm.
yeah. So yeah, it wasn't particularly hard. In fact, everybody was saying, "Oh yeah, loads of people would be interested." All the men were telling me, loads of people would be interested. So yeah.
So she'll be coming to live with you in Jordan. Is that the idea?
Yeah, that's the idea. Yeah. So I'd have to go
And she'll be
back.
sharing the same home
No?
with you and the missus? The
So yeah, good question. So as you might notice, this room is very quiet. So I'm in this is my second home, so I've already got a second home. You know that already, but maybe you're just asking for everybody else, right?
well, just
Um,
for context and everything,
yeah,
you're renting a place in town.
yes, exactly. I'm renting a place in town. My other place, or my kind of family home that my father-in-law owns, is a village home. We came, just to kind of put more context, we came to take care of my mother-in-law, as well as my father-in-law, but my father was like kind of like a stepfather from a different family, and he's got lots of other kids. Oh, by the way, a useful context is my mother-in-law is a second wife, so it's kind of not uncommon. That's why, my first wife doesn't really have a problem with that, although she's not totally happy with me at the moment, but there's a whole different story. She's kind of periodically angry with me anyway, so that happens. We can talk about that a little bit if you want.
Yes. Is she annoyed with you about the wife number two business, or is it
No, I think it's just other stuff periodically. Like I was just talking to her, and there's like, "Why are you angry with me?" And said, "Oh, I want to wear high heels," and you said no. And I said, "What else is there?" And I said, "I have to think about it. What are the other reasons?" So, I don't know. I mean, I semi take it seriously, but at the same time, I'm sad, disappointed. I was like, why are we having these silly conversations? But in terms of the second wife thing, she's like, yeah, I totally get why you need a second wife. Like, she's literally, how do you say? She's not too. She doesn't like having. Okay, I don't want to make it too embarrassing for her, but I'm kind of direct. Like, she's tired of all the attention, let's say in bed. Let's say maybe she's kind of worn out of that, and the new wife is quite eager to have loads of kids. So yeah.
right?
And my wife said, like, she totally gets it. And also, I mean, just to get not too personal, but there are medical problems after having so many kids and so many C-sections. If I probably mentioned that already, so
Yes, yeah,
it's
I
like,
believe so. Mhm.
yeah.
Right.
So stuff
So
like that, it really makes sense. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I guess the most important thing about wife number two is that wife number one is agreeable, and she is. So
Yeah.
that's a start. I
Yeah.
mean, I suppose it would be impossible or very difficult if she said, "No way, Jose, you can't have a number two wife," because then that
Yeah.
would make things awkward, wouldn't it?
It would, yeah. I don't particularly like having trouble and stuff like that. It's yeah, I like to be chilled. Um, so I'm a Pakistani, and if I had a Pakistani wife, this would probably be impossible, because even though you'd think Muslims all follow Islam, it's kind of, there's a lot of culture. There are bits of Islam people are happy to follow, and others bits are not. People,
Hmm.
people are happy to. So Pakistanis don't like the whole polygyny thing. They like to say they're Muslims, but they don't realize that they follow a lot of other cultures. They follow a lot of Hindu culture in terms of wedding ceremonies and all sorts of stuff, and they don't really realize that. And that's all. I think all different Muslim
Mm.
groups follow different parts of the religion, I guess. But
Yes.
they all
So
follow the
how are you going
essential.
to
Yeah. Go on.
formalize your relationship with wife number two? You said you have to go back to claim her.
Yeah. Yeah. So I have to go back. They've got a lot of African traditions. I'm kind of wearing African colors at the moment, but they will
That's a
like,
nice shirt.
yeah, thanks. Um, so there's all sorts of African clothes. There's like the first stage is something called knock on the door. You have to knock on the dad's door, although I've already talked and discussed with dad already. Um, but I
To
have to do it
formally ask
formally.
for her hand in marriage, something
That's
like that.
right. Yeah, that's right.
Hmm.
Yeah. And maybe he'll ask the same questions again or something. I'm not sure.
But this time
Um,
with an audience.
yes, I keep forgetting all the time. They described it to me. There's like you have to bring drinks, a bit of money, like not much money, like 50 quid or something.
Well, how much do you want me to pay you to take your daughter off your hands, mate? Kind of thing.
Yeah, it's something like that. To be honest, the money that I'm going to bring is going to be nothing compared to the actual wedding itself.
Right.
Well, I say nothing. It's I was kind of disappointed, but I'm very like when I'm even in Jordan, I'm always disappointed that anything costs anything at all. I expect everything to be free. So in Ghana, where their currency is completely collapsing, like £1 is 20 CDs, and only a few years ago it was like 10 or something. I don't know. So things are actually expensive there. So I'll be spending 2,500 on the wedding and stuff to do with that. And
How
I
many
don't know,
people will be
a hundred,
attending the wedding?
100 or so or
That's
something.
quite
That's what I was told.
is that?
I don't think that's particularly big. I mean, in England, the weddings we have, although very simple, are at least 100 to 300 people,
Mm-hmm.
close friends. That's considered small.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So they're gonna hire like a hotel or something and have caterers and whatever. They do
Mm-hmm.
things their own way. Um, yeah, so it's kind of like, oh, that's a bit more expensive than I expected. The dowry itself is going to be next to nothing. It's like 100 quid total, and
Mm-hmm.
most of
Mm-hmm.
that's not even going to the girl.
Let's go to
The
the father.
the father and the brother is in law, and I'm probably going to give like dish out 10 quid each or something. Like it really doesn't count for anything. It's kind of just ceremonial.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, so there's going to be some sort of culture. No, what's it called? Some sort of what do they call it? Cultural wedding? No, there's another word for it. But
Traditional
anyway,
wedding?
traditional wedding. I think that's probably the right word. That's the word. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that's also bringing some drinks. But I think that was the bit when I give out 10 quid to different parts of the family or something, or uncles
Mm-hmm.
to each person. Like I don't know. And then you have to also bring. You have to bring some. You have to buy certain material for the mum and dad or something that they will turn into clothes. I
Mm-hmm.
don't know, something like that.
Right.
Yeah, and then the wedding, like I said, there'll be caterers or something. There was somebody who cooked the food. I think they'll actually buy the food for them to cook. So like they choose the food themselves. You hire a kind of like a hotel ground or something. There's some famous, or usually some like places designed for that or often used
Is
for
it
that.
buffet or sit down?
I think it's sit down. My gut feeling.
Mm-hmm.
I'll have to find out. Yeah, I don't know.
Yes. And,
Yeah.
and when is it to take place?
Oh, I'm hoping in a month
Mm-hmm.
time. So I'm going to go back to Ghana again, um, and I think that the details is kind of like I want to stay there. It's a bit annoying that I had to go and come back. My colonial upbringing. I was like, let's get married right now. You just met me, I know, but let's just sort it out. Like, just hang on a minute. We've got to do. But there's a couple of things they had to sort out. Like, so the Ahmadiyya community has this. What do they call it? Counseling, pre-marriage counseling, and it's mandatory. And even though my father-in-law is part of the team, because he's going to be the father-in-law, he couldn't actually be he couldn't be the counselor, but that's mandatory. Normally they have multiple sessions, but they're going to make it easy for me because I'm a foreigner, because I can't stick around for weeks of it. So stuff like that, I don't know.
Did you do it before for wife number one?
No, but they had introduced it afterwards because of all the breakups and not, weddings. I mean, marriages not working out so well. So in the UK, they've kind of made it a rule. as well. So
Well,
it's
you,
become a
you could
real
do it
sin.
in the UK. Oh no, of course you can't because you're not in the UK. What about
Yeah.
in Jordan? Can you do it in Jordan? Is it a kind of international online course that everybody can
It's
do?
it's a sit down in person with people and they ask you questions and stuff like that. Uh,
With the betrothed.
yeah, I guess
It's the
she'll be
two of
there as
you
well.
together. Yes.
I guess so. I guess I didn't really ask, but I kind of guess so. Yeah. I mean, we've been sitting down together and eating together and all that kind of stuff already, anyway. So yeah, I guess she's going to be there. Just not me, just being interrogated, I guess. But anyway, yeah.
Well, I
So
mean,
it's
it
kind of
could be like they could interrogate you on your own and interrogate her on her own, and then
yeah,
I
yeah.
don't
I
know.
don't
There's
know
so many
how.
ways of doing it, but I
Yeah,
suppose
yeah.
you can find out because there must be a form for doing it now.
I guess, but I'm kind of yeah. I mean, I'm quite laid back. I just like I enjoy experiences. I don't ask too many questions about. I just kind of the only questions I ask about is like so I can get things done and make sure things get done. But the details of like what questions people are going to ask me, it's like, oh, let's have some fun. Let's see what happens. Let's see what it'll be like.
Well, you don't sound
Um,
like you're taking it seriously enough. But
yeah,
I would
yeah,
say it's like, well, do you even know what you're doing? It's
yeah.
like let's have some
I
fun
do.
here.
I do give the impression that I'm taking things very unseriously. Yeah, yeah, it's true. But and there's certain parts of my personality I can't hide very. I'm not very good at hiding stuff.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah, I like jumping into things. My first wife thought I was insane for even marrying her in the first place because I'd never been to Jordan at that time. It was like I never heard of Jordan. Actually, I barely heard of Jordan. I think I heard of the previous king of Jordan, because he had turned up in a helicopter in Jim Will Fix It, which is do you know what I'm talking
That
about?
was a while back. That must have been
A
a while back.
while back, very long
Mhm.
time ago. So that's the only time I'd heard of Jordan. And so I turned up to Jordan for my first wife and like barely knew her, and yeah, she thought I was crazy, but we went
So
ahead with it.
so
Yeah.
somebody fixed your wedding for you in Jordan. Sorry, I had to make a joke about Jim will fix it, and Jim will fix it helicoptered you into Jordan and married you off
Yeah,
and fixed it.
yeah, yeah.
What was he doing in Jordan? Do you remember?
No, what happened was somebody wanted to meet the King of Jordan, some British kid or something, for some
Oh,
reason.
right. Okay.
And then the King of Jordan came along on a helicopter. And that's what I remembered. I was like, oh, a
Okay.
king came to see this kid. That's nice. And then, oh, he's a King of Jordan. And I think he was quite charismatic or something. Uh, yeah, something about
Is
it.
it the current king or
No, the current king's dad. Sorry,
uh-huh.
the current king's. So the current king's dad was the one who came on a helicopter. Yeah,
Mhm, mhm.
yeah. So yeah,
Okay.
and the current
Wow.
king. So the current king's dad had like 4 wives, including a British wife. But this king only has 1 wife. So very different. Yeah,
Yes. But
yeah.
perhaps he's just being cautious. Maybe you don't want to bite off more than you can chew. I suppose I guess
Who,
men
the
have a way
current
of
king?
saying, getting married. Why would I want to do that? Is all going to be a bit of you know.
Who, the current king?
Well, no. Just the idea of marrying is kind of biting off more than you can chew. Well, some men might say, mightn't they?
Interesting.
You know,
I think British people, I think this is what we're doing, isn't it? Westerners think getting married is biting off more than you can chew, or just a massive deal. And like they must be thinking, how on earth can you just meet someone and be getting ready to marry them so quickly? What a ridiculous idea. I mean, how do we explain that? I mean, can
well, I
you
guess it
possibly
depends
understand
on
why
how
not?
keen you are. So I guess many people would be saying, "You've already got one wife, or you already know what it's like. Why do you want another?" And you'll be saying,
Yeah,
um, obviously for you know physical reasons. And I
I like
suppose
to have sex
the
a lot. Yeah.
yes, and the average Westerner would say, well, we can have sex before without marriage, so there's no need to do that. And but would you like to tell us about um, wife number two to be?
Sure. Why don't you ask me questions? I could give the
So
more whatever you might be interested in.
yes, so I'm trying to and I guess that they were saying, um, so what does she do and what does she hope to do? I guess would be. I mean, why don't you ask? Why don't you tell us what you asked her? I think that would be more interesting because I guess you must have asked her questions other than "Are you prepared to marry me?" You must have asked her, questions about herself and that sort of thing.
Yeah, I probably did, and it's kind of a blur. But I could tell you, she is a primary school teacher and doesn't like being a primary school teacher. Um, she wanted to be a veterinary assistant, not a vet, because that would be too much work and studying. Just because she likes animals. So that's that, and it
Hmm.
doesn't really pay much. Yeah,
Hmm.
being a
Yes.
teacher
Well,
in Ghana.
yes. So she sounds like a smart lady.
Yeah. Um, okay. I mean, there's so many reasons. I would say spiritual reasons why I chose her, and I was like, but but she's very kind and very kind of more in touch with her feelings than I am. As a Brit, I think um, I when I talk about human beings, and even in these shows, I kind of talk about statistics and like this is what's going to happen to you statistically. Your life's going to be miserable unless you do this and whatever. Um, but I wouldn't say like people here kind of are more people in hotter countries tend to be more in touch with their feelings and caring and thoughtful and stuff like that. And um, one thing I really liked about her, which is very well, particularly interesting, is her ability to listen, which is very rare amongst Westerners. So I think I did a live stream about the ability to actually listen to other people. And when I say listen to other people, yeah, it's not like just have something go in one ear and come out the other ear. Like be interested and ask questions. And I think I did a live stream on how to actually do that. Like when talk to people, ask them questions about themselves, be interested in other people. I think that's an almost non-existent skill amongst Westerners. I certainly don't notice it. Um, yeah, I really like that about her, just like listening, and I'll be
Hmm.
talking. I'm so, are you sure you don't want to say anything? And she'll say, I don't really talk much. So, and then, but at least she'll remember things and she'll ask me 1 or 2 days afterwards, like, oh, did you do this thing that you said you were going to do and whatever, whatever. So it's like shows that
Hmm.
she was actually listening, which is really nice. It might sound silly to some people, but I thought that's kind of like that's one of the nicest things about her.
Aha. Good
Hmm.
listener. Hmm.
Yeah.
Very
Um,
promising.
yeah, I mean, what do you think? Don't you think it's kind of a? I think. Did you watch Fight Club? Famous kind of movie.
Years ago, I barely remember the story.
I'm gonna pretty quote something that most people don't really notice, but it's in the movie they said most people are just waiting for you to finish so they can start talking, which is a very Western thing that I've noticed. Like because I've had the habit of trying to talk to people and encourage people to talk about their feelings and stuff like that. I'll notice that I'll be doing that. I'll be like, oh, what happened with your, tell me, like, though I'll start off by saying like, how's life, what's going on, and they'll say, oh, same old, and then I'll push them to talk more and more, but they very rarely ask anything in return. It's like a skill that's completely gone in Western people because they're so individualistic that they're not really interested in, like, if you say how are you doing, you're never supposed to say oh, I'm having a terrible time, this, or, here are the details. They just want you to say, oh, fine, and just carry on, which is really
Mhm.
sad. So that's something I miss and really appreciate that, she does.
Mhm. Yes.
Yeah. I could say about looks and stuff, but I kind of think that's kind of,
No, no, no. I mean,
yeah,
I don't.
yeah.
It.
You ask good
I
questions.
think people should just concentrate on, you know, the spiritual qualities of a person. Because
Mm,
if you said, "Oh, she's really rich and beautiful and witty and blah blah," and it's like, yeah, you know, but it doesn't tell you, because then there should be a trophy wife, and then we would
mm.
know, if she sounds too perfect, then you know,
I
um,
totally agree with that. I mean, I was thinking about like there was this opportunity to marry the 18-year-old, the 22-year-old, whatever, and I was like, but deep down, and the guy who was helping me find another wife, we have like in the Ahmadiyya community, we have like these matchmakers, right? He was like, watch out, like I didn't hide anything from him. It's like, if I don't agree with this girl that you've just set up right now today, which is the person I ended up going with, I was like, I have to meet this other girl that I've set up a dinner date with. And I really kind of didn't want to. And like the guy was telling me, you might, all sorts of, let's say, dodgy things might come up, like trying to get me into bed really quickly or something like that, which might sound really good for everybody else, but I'm religious, right? Um, so there could have been lots of potentially trophy wives, right? And I could have, like, if I had that mindset of like trying to show off to other people that I got an 18-year-old or whatever old, right? Like as a trophy, then I wouldn't go with this girl. But I was like, there are a bunch of little things that made me think she's the right person. So she
mhm,
came in the right time, and also weird things like she'd never had a passport before, but she had applied for a passport, and a passport recently just came. All sorts of little weird coincidences, and I thought, okay, fine,
mhm.
let's go with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So out of all the girls you met in Ghana, this was the one you actually liked the most.
um, I don't. So that's, you might say, oh, you're supposed to say yes again, but it's like, um, with the first wife as well. It sounds really weird, but I will say yes to everybody and wait for them to say yes back to me, and then they're the right person. Sounds terrible. I don't know if it sounds terrible, but it's kind of like, I'm kind of like, there's a movie called Yes Man. Kind of, you could yes to opportunities. I don't know. Have you watched it? Jim
Oh
Carrey.
no, 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 I
Yeah,
haven't seen it, but
yeah.
I'm sorry, I didn't quite understand what you were saying before you
Yeah,
mentioned
it sounds
the
really weird.
movie.
I wait for people to say yes to me, and I'll say yes to everybody else. Like, I'll be like, if anybody comes across me, I will say yes, I'm ready to marry, kind of thing. And then they'll probably say, like, I'll have, like, people will say no to me, no, 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 until somebody says yes to me, sort of thing. So that probably sounds really weird. But I kind of tried to describe it from the kind of yes man philosophy,
Mhm,
um,
mhm.
where we can't, I'm just kind of like, if anybody says something, I kind of shouldn't tell everybody this, but kind of like, I kind of try to say yes to things. So if people know that, they'll be like, do you want to? And I'll be like, oh, okay, I'll try to say yes to it.
Yes,
So
I see. You're going to seize the opportunity. Right.
be
So,
open to possibilities. Yes. Try not to say
yes.
no. Yes.
And I guess you were showing you're just saying showing to everybody in your brief time in Ghana that I'm looking for a wife. I am,
Yeah.
I am. And that would be a good way of signaling that you are looking for a wife. So those who are interested in these things will come to you.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many stories I could tell. So, I mean, there was an event going on in a mosque. It was like a like training, let's say, session for the kids where they're being taught to dress up properly, wear a uniform, which is amazing compared to people literally weeing in the street. So like you could see, like it was, I really felt it was like night and day, like day in the mosque and night outside in terms of civilization, right? And so they had this kids training thing. There was boys and the girls. They're doing their all. You saw a picture, didn't you? I sent you, I think. In front of like a mosque, and those little kids, little girls dressed in white and boys dressed in a uniform. So anyway, so they were tagging along with me, some of them, when I was doing like my tour of the school that my granddad started and stuff like that. So during that, there was a team doing the cooking, and I thought, oh, I'll just help out with the cooking, the African style cooking, with like a massive oar, with some really, heavy duty cooking. And there were some ladies there, but it was the men doing the heavy duty stuff, but the ladies are helping out a bit as well. And I mentioned, I'm looking for a second wife. And then one of the grandmothers said, marry my granddaughter, that kind of stuff. But that didn't work out because the granddaughter preferred the career to get married. So the grandma was very, very, very disappointed with that. But it was, stuff like that. Yeah, there was a lot of like, I'm looking for a second wife. I'd mention it here and there, and word would get around slowly. Yeah.
Yes. So I guess you might be called taking the scattergun approach, like, I'm in town and I want to get married and I haven't decided yet. And I guess that must be quite enjoyable or not.
Yeah, I kind of, okay, yeah. So this is, I like this question for a couple of reasons, because in the West, we're like, oh, somebody turned me down, I'm going to start crying and never try again, that kind of thing. And I think you should enjoy life and don't take it personally if somebody says no. In fact, I'm kind of really arrogant. It's like, you must be stupid for saying no to me. But I think I've got good reasons for people saying that, like, okay, I've got money, you need money, what's the problem? I don't believe in this romantic love. That just kind of wears out after 5 seconds. So yeah, I think it's good, healthy to have that mentality. Like, oh, if somebody said no to you, doesn't necessarily mean that you're like a terrible person, but it could mean that you need to improve. And if you need to improve in some ways, right? But at the same time, the reason why I don't get hurt by kind of people saying no or something like that is because there's a psychological thing that somebody said, if you have a why, you can get through any how. And my why is that I'm doing a spiritual thing, in fact, to get married. In Islam, it's a very important thing to get married, especially, here's some weird context, I don't know if it's weird, but it's very important for me that I don't think it's good that I'm in a kind of a room by myself 6 days a week, where I could be up to no good. Right? I have a very high sex drive, and bad thoughts come into my mind. I don't want to be put in that situation. So, and this is what I told my father-in-law. Like I said, the reason I'm here is because I don't trust myself in the room by myself, sort of thing. And so I don't want to go to prostitutes, and all sorts of other bad stuff. And so I want to get a second wife. And other people find that really hilarious. We're like, oh, you need a wife for the other house, do you? And it's like, yeah, I do. That kind of thing.
Mike Malzahn is in the chat, and I sort of wondered, because I'm not a man, I'm not asking you the right questions, and I don't know if you think Mike would be a good asker
Mike,
of questions.
join in if you like. And Mike is totally correct. Marriage is half of faith. Yes, totally right. He knows his stuff. I wish he was a Muslim already. I think I saw a question from you. And anyway, I'll put in. Let's get Mike to jump in if you like. Mike's a regular on our streams from the States. I don't know what this is. I mean, Alika is a kind of long-term, I don't know, troll.
You know who Muji is?
I don't know who that is. Muji Islam.
Well, he's this Iranian who has his own interpretation, a very liberal interpretation of Islam. So,
Oh, oh,
which no other Muslim agrees with him about. So, I guess he's not taken that seriously.
hey,
And
Mike.
here comes Mike. Hello, Mike.
How you doing?
Hey, all.
Good to see you.
Hey, how's everybody doing?
I'm
We're
good.
doing fine.
Yeah. So, Mike, Claire thinks as a man you might have different kinds of questions about my search or
Your
whatever
search for a second wife?
passport bro style hunt for a wife in another country. So yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I would think according to Islam, you should be looking to the widows and orphans.
That's interesting. Oh yeah. Are you basing that on a verse of the Quran which when it talks about the four wives it mentions orphans in that same verse? Is that why you say that, or is there some hadith that I might not know about?
No, I wasn't thinking of a particular verse, although I guess in the fourth book it does say something about orphans. I mean, several times it says, be good to the orphans, don't devour their, what is theirs.
Yeah.
Stuff. But usually when an Islamophobe like myself, and I don't generally bring up polygamy. I have no problem with polygamy, and I have no problem with polyandry. If it's consenting adults, that's the way they want to structure their lives. I have no problem with it. But the defense you often get from Muslims when people talk about polygamy is that, well, it's really one, the men go off to fight and a bunch of them get killed. You don't want to leave a bunch of widows with no man to support them. I think even in the Old Testament, I remember one time somebody was saying something about Jewish law. One of the early forms of kind of welfare was if you had a field like planted in a square, you harvest it in a circle, and that leaves the corners as like communal property that, the widows and orphans can come
that's
and
nice.
get food. Some old Tamalic law, maybe Claire would know that one better than I do.
This is all new to me, but yes, it does make sense. It's sort of like you've already got one wife, so wife number two should somehow, will not in some way eclipse wife number one, which might cause ill feeling. So it should be wife number two should be somehow younger in years and not as high status as wife number one, or wife number one might not be happy and then you'll have trouble. Is that the reasoning?
Right. And even I think,
does that make sense to you, Mike?
Sure. And even I think like in Khalid's situation, he said his wife doesn't necessarily enjoy sex all that much. I remember I had a girlfriend once, and she said she was talking to her friends, and she said they were mostly Italians, but that their husbands, were all cheating on them, and they were like fine with it. It's actually, I think there's an episode of Friends where Joey's dad is having an affair, and Joey steps in, and the mother comes over and like, "What are you doing? He's been nice to me since he started having this affair." But this woman I dated, she was like, "Yeah, the women are like, let the girlfriend deal with the yucky stuff. Let her, take care of him sexually and stuff. We'll stay in the house with the kids and, kind of open secret, right? Like the mob, if you watch The Sopranos, they all have a Goomba or whatever. They all have a woman on the side. It's understood. It's accepted. The French, right? When who was it? Mitterrand, he was the prime minister of France for 20 years or something. When he died, his wife and his mistress sat down next to each other at the funeral. Everybody's like, "What is this?" Well, it's the French. That was like the 80s or something. But
that's so funny.
He died years ago. But
even the Japanese
at the state funeral, there's his mistress.
Yeah.
At least in polygamy, and you're open about it. Like hopefully. Although I remember the Ali Dawa guy in The Bitter Truth did a thing about how you don't actually have to tell your wife if you want to take a second wife. That seemed a little shady, but
no, that's shady.
But he's Muslim.
Yeah, no, he claimed under Sharia, you technically don't have to tell the first wife if you want to take a second wife.
What? No, because it affects her.
No,
inheritance and things.
No, I think maybe there's a misunderstanding. Maybe you don't have to ask permission, but it shouldn't be a secret. I don't think, and not. I'm not sure if there's a verse or something.
Well,
but
they
I
definitely
don't
say you
think
don't have to
marriage
ask permission.
It should be open pub. Yeah.
I thought they took it a step further. You could be right. Maybe it was years ago that I saw it. So we can Google it later or something. But you definitely don't have
Sure.
to ask permission. But they were
I don't
kind
think you
of
have to ask
making it sound like
permission,
you don't even really have to tell her.
Yeah, but in Jordan, you do have to ask permission, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, but yeah, I do, because I went to kind of like the court, kind of whatever, the official people, and they said, yeah, we're going to phone up your wife, and she has to say yes, otherwise, go ahead. Yeah. So that's just
they
kind of
just told her?
legal thing
No.
in Jordan.
Under secular coronism, they'd all have to be registered, all 4 of them. They'd all be on
Yeah,
the
it's
register.
not about being registered. It's about getting permission from the first wife. That's a different thing, which is not an Islamic thing, but I think in Jordan
Well,
they make it a thing.
I think if you're wealthy enough to put them in a separate home, then you don't need to ask the permission of the first wife. But if you're going to, put them in the same accommodation, then possibly you would need, if they're going to
It just
share the
depends
same.
Depends how sensitive everybody is, isn't it? Like some people are like, oh yeah, we're all together in the same house, but most Westerners would not be happy with it, like being openly, having 2 wives. They'd be like, doesn't matter if you're in a different house or not, you can't have sex with me and her. I mean, whatever, you know what I'm talking about. You can't.
Yeah, I suppose
Like,
you just sort of rotate, your wives, at different, times of the week or the month. But I just heard, I remember that I heard somewhere, you can't make them share the same kitchen or there will be trouble. So,
Yeah, so
Yeah.
this Ghanaian wife was like, she was concerned about being the second wife because sometimes the first wife bosses the second wife, or like
yeah.
the first wife's job is just to be in charge and be the boss. And I said, look, we'd be in separate houses. Like they've got their different traditions and stuff like that. So she was scared of that, but I said it wouldn't be that way. There would be different houses, so no problems such as that.
Well, 2
We've
quick
got
things. Speaking of, hey, the white Muslim
No,
woman. There you go.
Another wife? Yes, that's the answer is yes. The ruling is like that because it is saying the second wife is a wife, even if it wasn't to something
Told to the first wife, I think.
Kids, not us. So, do you understand it? I'm not sure. Which ruling?
I think she just said, well, I mean,
Sorry.
it's not allowed in the West to have more than 1 wife, so that the subsequent ones will not have legitimate offspring. I think
Khalid,
that's
did
what
you
she's
show
meant.
her next comment? Is she maybe talking about the ruling on notifying?
I think the next comment was just trying to clarify the first.
I hope she'll join us.
Do you want to join? You got a link. White Muslim woman. What was her name again? Carol. Yeah. But her internet's been terrible for a while. Been trying to get her on for a long time. Yeah. But yes, I'm getting a second wife, God willing. Perfect Dawa guy is Muji. Okay. Anyway, any other questions? Last few minutes.
Well, I was
going
to just make a couple observations. One, talking about multiple houses. My brother, his company, well, it's my sister-in-law's company, really, I guess. They import lighting fixtures. Some stuff's like fairly high end. Like I think they sold a chandelier to Taylor Swift for like $40,000.
Sure.
But, so they got this one job, and they were sending it to Saudi, and they said the guys kept emailing saying, I need 4 of all these, and they have to be identical. Make sure they're identical. They kept saying, make sure, right? This guy was building 4 houses for his 4 wives. He had, $500,000 worth of lighting, a couple $100,000 into each one. And he wanted to be very specific. They have to be absolutely identical. So I guess he's putting down 4 houses, the same floor plan. Whereas I don't know if you guys have ever seen the HBO series Big Love. It's Bill Paxton
No.
starred in it, and it was he was a Mormon out in Utah, and he owned
Yeah.
like kind of like a Home Depot store, and so he was pretty wealthy. So he had 3 wives, all in the same, not in the same neighborhood. He had the 3 houses all next to each other, and it's pretty funny. A lot of drama, but their houses weren't the exact same. But he had the wives each had their own house, and they had their nights that he rotated which house he was in, and had kids by all of them. Actually, he got the second wife because his first wife had ovarian cancer and had to have her ovaries removed, and therefore she couldn't have any more kids. And I don't know if you know anything about Mormonism, but they have some weird thing about the more kids you have, the better you are in heaven. That's one of the reasons they're very polygamous and like to have a lot of kids.
I mean, I don't think that's kind of a general. I think that's kind of in line with both Christianity and Islam, probably Judaism as well. That there's a verse in the Bible, isn't it? Go forth and multiply. No, that's
be
kind of
fruitful and multiply.
Something like that. So it's a good thing to have.
They say that at all the weddings.
Sorry?
They say that at all the weddings. Go forth, be fruitful, and multiply.
Cool. Yeah, exactly. So it's a good thing to have lots of kids. It's encouraged. So and I think that's all in all 3 of the Abrahamic religions, I'm sure. You know what I mean? Like all the Orthodox Jews have like 10 kids or something each. So I don't see that particularly wrong, and particularly I would say even good in some ways. But I like the point that the story is really important. The one about the 4 massive chandeliers and the 4 whatever doing it equally, because in Islam it's really important. There's a verse of the Quran that says you only have more than one wife if you can treat them equally. There's only the matters of the heart, which some of the things you can't control, but other words, generally speaking, you should treat the wives equally. There's a saying of Prophet Muhammad that says if you treat one wife differently to the other, you'll be paralyzed, half paralyzed in the next life. So it's an important point you made, even though it's quite funny. But I'm glad that Muslims taking it seriously.
He was very serious about making sure they were identical.
Yeah, that's good.
Claire, how many husbands do you have?
None at the moment.
None. Well, why don't you become Khalid's second wife? Convert.
Well,
you have to be a Muslim, right?
Yes,
you consider yourself a Christian, Claire?
Khalid, to ask. Well, I mean, I can't just go to Jordan and live there.
Oh, okay. It's practical.
She's too westernized.
But
let's have Vincent.
Yes, and I don't know what I do, and perhaps the age is not quite right. Oh, I think.
Well, I don't want to be too perverse or anything, but if you guys got married, she could at least call you for some phone sex because she's got the sexiest voice I ever heard. So I'm just saying.
Listen, Mike likes you. Come on, just get it together already. Okay. Anyway, Vincent, come on.
Oh, Vincent.
I think his connection's terrible.
Oh, what a shame. I'd be interested to hear what Vincent has to say about
Hello,
getting
can you hear me?
Yes,
yep,
we can now.
I can hear a little bit.
Okay, hold on. Oh, how do I...
It's fine now.
Okay.
It's good now. It's good now.
Well, so you're seriously getting a second wife?
Yep. Why wouldn't I be serious about it? It sounds like a good idea, doesn't it?
No, it's not that I'm very pleased because I very much support polygamy. I have blogs on polygamy. I have blog posts on polygamy, supporting polygamy. I think it's eugenic. I think that, well, if you look in ancient history, we know from DNA, if you went back into ancient caveman times, only 1 in every 17 men had children because he was monopolizing all of the women, and most men did not have wives. And okay, in caveman times, what type of man do you need? You need brutal, you need savage, you need controlling, dominating, you need the big bad man. And so, you want him to dominate all the women, so that's the type of people that, you're breeding. And but I think that in that time that was eugenic. I think maybe in this time you don't want the most like psychopathic people breeding. You know what I mean? We're more civilized now. But I think that it helps. Okay, in this day and age you could become wealthy and everything. Hopefully it's easier for you to gain more than one wife if you're attractive and you're wealthy because you're intelligent and healthy and are able to
I
support
agree.
more than one wife.
And also, you should want to get married. You think marriage is a good thing, and if you don't think that, you're not suitable for it. Do you know what I mean? And there's a lot of people who don't even like marriage or having a family or taking care of a wife. So there's a lot of basic things like that. And not only that, it's not that you have to be particularly rich. I think that's an unfortunate way of looking at marriage at the moment, because there are a lot of taxi drivers who had more than one wife in Ghana. People who just didn't make as much of a fuss about, like didn't make it so expensive or something. I don't know. Or
Well,
yeah.
I mean, look, okay, but what's their quality of life? I mean, there's a quality of life issue too. Are these wives working, or does the taxi driver have more than one wife and he's trying to feed, 12 kids with the taxi driving? Are they working, the mothers, or no?
I think, yeah, a lot of the mothers do work, but not necessarily. But it's kind of a common thing in Ghana to be a market store lady or something like that. Um, but I mean, you've touched on another really important question. Do you? I remember Claire shared a movie. What was that movie? Like, it was about all the rich people not having any children, and the poor people or having children. What was that called?
I can't remember. Did I? Was it a
So
documentary?
no, it was a funny comedy movie.
Oh,
Um,
Idiocracy.
Idiocracy. Thank you, Vincent. Anyway, so the idea is that you were talking about quality of life, and then in this movie they were kind of making fun of these relatively rich people who are like, oh, I mean, we'll get to it. We've got together now. We're girlfriend and boyfriend, and when we get a bit richer, we'll get married, and when we're really rich and everything's in place, then we will have children. And so, in short, what I'm trying to say is, I'm going to say probably two things. Like, first of all, nothing's ever perfect. That's stupid. That's not real, right? But also, I'm actually very pleased. When you start having kids, maybe, I don't know, especially if you don't want your kids to be spoiled, you'll realize how easy it is for your kids to be spoiled, right? And how easy it is for them to be weak as soon as they have too many things. I like my kids having a slightly tough life. I put them in difficult situations. And so I don't subscribe to, oh, you don't have enough money and their life's tough, and I mean, their life's too tough or something like that. It's good for them. And I think it's not even healthy for them to have too many things. And yeah, I don't agree with this whole thing that their lives are not good enough or something. Sometimes I would say in the 80s or whatever, back in London, when we had less things and going to a restaurant was a really big deal. I remember going to McDonald's was a really big deal then. We spent more time with each other. Now we've got more things and technology, and every kid's got a smartphone. They don't have the same social skills. So I'm quite happy for kids to be quite poor. And I think there's always an up and down in
Yes.
societies, and
Yes,
yeah,
I
go on.
know.
I
Okay,
think
thank
those
you.
just to finish off, those poor societies that have hardly got anything, they're the next up and coming societies, and the West
Okay,
is
I
going to
know,
collapse
I
soon.
know. Immigrants come in and tell us to live in poverty. You do this to us all the time, and
Sorry.
not to solve our problems using even more technology, not to solve our problems using even more science.
No,
You
I'm
know,
not saying that. We
but
use
we
technology, but
made
be
okay some things. Well, okay, well, we need to learn to live with technology, and maybe we're going through a rough time right now, but we need to adapt And instead of going backwards like all these immigrants want us to do, let's find a way to move forward into a brave new world and use psychology and use persuasion and use new,
No,
you know,
I would say, your technology has made your life so much easier. Stop, being a little worse for everybody in the West, and start having kids. You'll be all right. Live it. It's going to be tough. Live on less. You'll love each other's company. You need each other's company more than buying more and more technology and things.
no,
Not
well,
against
we
technology,
need to
but
have
yeah,
technology.
go on.
We need to do both. I mean, okay, so my thing is use technology to invent the artificial womb so that you could have more children.
Oh,
And
oh.
so, okay, like using
Anyway,
technology. Okay, so technology can solve our problem if we do it my way. So if they do it my way, technology will bring us more children. It'll bring us that will be able to be free and have children at the same time. And from the people who brought you birth control, we will now bring you the opposite, which is reproductive technology.
that won't work, isn't it? Like it's like kind of arrogant to think that we can replace a womb, the
Why
marvel
can't we?
technology of a
Why can't
womb.
we? Who said we can't?
He said, "Can you make an eyeball?" Because I'm sure a womb will be far more complicated to replicate human life. But just go. Let's go for an eyeball camera, as good as an eyeball. Can you
A
do
what?
that? Can you
A
make a
what?
fly?
Let's okay. I mean, yes, this is the very Eastern way that science will never do it. I mean, it's possible, but it's, impossible. It's impossible for you. So these ideas are a little bit like, oh, an artificial womb. How bizarre. Do you know that people like you told Margaret Sanger she was insane when she said they were going to make pills that would make women sterile? Like, what? Are you insane? Like, you know what I mean? But she eventually did it, and I
Is
don't
that a
think,
good thing to make
yes, it
women
is.
sterile?
Well, to make it so they don't have so many children. I didn't mean permanently sterile, but if you
I'm
come
sure
with
you
the,
could. I mean, that's not exactly high tech technology. You could just brutalize. You could put all sorts of junk into somebody and make them sterile.
well, the thing is that something that would be safe to make her sterile, but the point is, yes, of course you're going to naysay and say, this
I
is
don't think. I bet it
you
wasn't
cannot
safe.
invent
Just
the
like the
technology.
pill is probably
Oh,
not safe
oh,
either.
I do want to tell you, if everything goes well, I will be going back to school for animal science to research this very thing. I have a little bit more faith in myself than someone who doesn't think a piece of technology can't be invented. I mean, it's not technically impossible. I mean, you can't prove to me the impossibilism of inventing an
It's not
artificial.
about just impossible, it's about underestimating all the side effects. So just like the pill, for example, has all these side effects that people are realizing, and now it kind of makes your hormones imbalance. People stop having their periods and all sorts of crazy things, right? Um, so I think at least we should have some humility to realize uh, the difficulty of it, and also the side effects of all our past attempts of how they've gone wrong. So
And the
yeah.
Well,
unintended
okay, I disagree.
consequences.
I think no,
Oh,
you see liberal
social
culture.
consequences. Yeah.
You see liberal culture as something gone wrong, but the only thing that's wrong with liberal culture is low reproductive rates. If we had high reproductive rates, it would not be a problem. And so once the artificial womb does get invented, we will have high reproductive rates, and then these problems will disappear. So
No, I mean the low reproductive rates are based on the fact that people don't even want relationships with each other. So Western men
no, it's too
hate
difficult.
Western women so much that the whole passport bros situation has occurred, right? So it's not like one thing, just that the big problem has arisen from all the other big problems, like the lack of sex in relationships, the lack of relationships. There's a lot of problems. It's not like just one
Okay,
thing.
well, let's see what happens when, it's very easy to mass produce children. The government can do it for us with taxes. Tax the people and let the government breed the children. So do something find some way to breed and keep what I would call white civilization going while keeping the reproductive rates high. And don't listen to these. Let's all be poor. Immigrants coming in. Let's be poor. Let's let go of all
What do
the
you think,
technology.
Mike? What do you think about this
Well,
"Let's
I
All
was
Be
gonna
Poor" thing?
I was gonna ask Bruno
Go on.
before you just said keep the white race going. If not importing children from China, but if you wanted to make them only white or from Africa. It's funny. I was watching Anthony Bourdain one time. He was down in Madagascar, and of course he's got a camera, and all these kids are running around him, right? And he's like a New York liberal, and he's like, well, we're kind of destroying the planet, and here's kind of why, right? Because they got a bunch of kids, right? Now you got to support all these children. They're deforesting the rainforests in Madagascar to plant. You got to grow crops. You got to feed people. But Vincent, don't you think maybe just buying babies would be the way to go? Why invent this whole artificial womb? Why not
Um,
just outsource
yeah, well,
breeding to
okay,
the
yes,
poor countries?
okay.
And hey, 10,
Uh,
100
oh,
grand,
yes,
100 grand a kid. I'm sure lots
yeah,
of non
yeah.
first world people would.
Prior to the invention of the artificial womb, yes, I promote mass surrogacy. Of course, I would
Yeah,
think
okay.
that that's necessarily and definitely necessary. But the artificial womb, we make it so that we no longer need to, go through the
But I mean,
process of.
I think Mike was saying adoption rather than surrogacy. Well, are you
Okay,
happy with that as well?
no, I mean adoption. No, it should be selective breeding. It shouldn't just be poor people that couldn't take care of their children, and everyone's importing these babies into their homes or third world babies. Like it should be, people doing selective breeding. If you're going to do surrogacy, that means it's not a love relationship. So you might as well do it based on genetic outcomes and desired racial characteristics and things like that. You should if you're going to do surrogacy, make it a scientific breeding program, not, oh, I fell in love with so and so, or my parents arranged my marriage, or something like that. I mean, these are more. Yes,
Oh,
I
are
think.
you against arranged marriages as well?
Yes, I know you're into them. I mean, you wouldn't, of course, be selective breeding.
Arranged or I mean, I mean, my kind of uh, brand of arranged marriages is more like assisted marriages, which is what we used to have in the West as well. What do they call it?
I know. I know.
Introductions.
I don't want you.
As long as
Yes,
I think it used to work better than now. Right now, it doesn't work at all.
yes, I know when people have choices, you don't want people to have choices to get divorced, and then when people get choices and then you say, oh, look, when you have a choice, you do get divorced, so you might as well not allow that or make it socially
Yeah, I don't really like
unacceptable.
choices. I don't think human beings are
Yeah,
very
I
good with
know.
choices. More
Very,
choices are the more
very,
opportunity to make dumb choices.
very
But
Eastern.
people,
Very
God gives
Eastern.
choices. And,
let
yeah,
let the white man make his mistakes, let him learn from them, let him
yeah.
evolve. Don't get stuck in the same pit forever and ever. Just, okay, fine, you made a mistake, or one thing had an outcome and then you realize that you need another outcome, and or you need a new piece of technology or whatever it is, and just keep trying, you know what I mean, and move
Cool.
forward, and don't. It's a different mentality, and we don't want to live in poverty. And if we can do it through surrogacy and eventually through the artificial womb, i think I think we will, and then we can breed
So,
armies
for
just
people who
massive.
don't know, there are a bunch of people who actually take Vincent seriously. Not taking Vincent seriously, but at least the idea of artificial wombs. I was quite surprised that this is even a serious idea. But, I was surprised one of my atheist friends who runs a Quran class that I participate in, he finds it serious somehow. So there are people who take it seriously. Can we wind up the whole thing? Let's go. I'll be last, so we'll go anti-clockwise, I guess, starting from Vincent. You kind of give your 1 minute summary of whatever you want to share about. But we make it roughly on topic about finding passport bros in Ghana, possibly something along those lines.
No,
So
I
not finding traditional wives in Ghana, something along those lines, if possible.
no pay. Do not marry her. Do not fall in love with her. Pay a white woman to have your children, and just don't worry about relationship, marriage. Don't go to another race. Don't go to another country. Have your child out of duty, and
And you're not talking to me, you're talking about to white people to do that, right? Because you want to keep it white, keep with the West white,
well,
yeah?
you said passport bros, so people shouldn't be.
Okay, generally, yeah. Sure.
You said passport bros, so you shouldn't be passporting. You should stay and just pay for it and find girlfriends. And if the girlfriend doesn't work out, we'll look for another girlfriend. Just have girlfriends and pay a woman to have your children. That's it.
Cool. And that's an interesting idea. Okay. Mike?
Well, I have a buddy who is a passport bro, I guess. I think he did this before that was a saying. He went down to Colombia. I think he's in the Dominican Republic right now, but he was, a middle class white guy who felt American women were all too demanding. They want perfection from everything. Not to put words in your mouth, Khalid. I thought when you were saying don't spoil your kids didn't mean everybody should be poor. Just it's good for kids not to be given everything all the time. It reminded me of Thomas Sowell. I don't know if you know him. He's a black conservative economist, and he does a lot of studying of ethnic groups and stuff. And he did one thing where he talked to the Jews who were originally like in the Bronx, which is like the poorest part of of New York, and how they all worked their way into law school and became wealthy, and now they send all their kids to Harvard. And when he talks to them, they say, well, the best thing that happened to me was we were poor and I had to struggle to make all this. And he says, well, then why are you pampering your children? You're depriving them of what you think was the best part of your childhood. So anyways, not that it's passport bros, but I don't care if people want to go to other countries to import wives, go for it.
Cool. I love that.
Ultimately, racism will be ended by all the races mixing together, and we'll run out of blonde hair people, but that'll be all right.
Oh, I've got hope for the blondes. Claire?
I think I'll try and answer white Muslim woman's question for you about why you're trying to marry someone from Ghana. Because really, you're hoping for a woman that is hard to find in the West. That she would be, prepared to be second wife, and I suppose you want her to be a good listener. I mean, the idea of a husband is to find a wife who's a good listener, and not find a wife who wants her husband to be a good listener and have to listen to her thoughts. So I guess we're all looking for the best deal we can get, and I guess if you're a woman, you'd be looking for a prince, and if you're if you're a man, you'd be wanting just somebody who's great in the kitchen, and will look after the house and children, and will enjoy doing these things, and also be a good listener. I mean, that is the ideal. Well, I suppose the average white woman will be thinking of her career and trying to rope you into doing the housework and looking after the children. And I suppose that is the nightmare of most men, whatever their race. Is that I can see Colin nodding away.
Totally agree. I totally agree. And I don't think I mentioned the good listener thing on air, did I? Because I think we were talking before. I was talking to Claire about, she thought, I think I didn't mention it on air, did I?
Well, we mentioned it on this stream.
Did I? I didn't.
Yes.
Oh, I did mention it in the stream. Okay, fine.
Yes.
I thought that was before the stream started. Okay, so that's cool. That's covered.
Were you smoking in Ghana a lot?
No, I don't smoke at all.
Oh, no. I'm just making a little joke about your
Forgetfulness?
Yes, because I only
I do forget a lot. It's true. I actually do forget.
But sometimes if you tell the same story a lot, you're not really sure if you said something or not.
True, I told it too.
I sometimes go blank. It's like I know it's something I say a lot, but I don't know in the last 5 minutes if I.
And then people tell me off
not.
with repeating stuff like you did in the beginning. So yeah, but yeah,
you mentioned it in every stream. I suppose.
Yeah, every stream. Yeah, it gets boring. I understand. So I just thought, what can I say differently at the end? And then I thought of like a really racist thing. I love being, racist and politically incorrect. Basically, one of the reasons why I was going to Ghana was to find black gold. So, like they say oil is black gold and kind of hunting for it. I thought not just to find myself a second wife, but potentially a business where I wanted to find like an untapped, let's say, source of traditional wives, traditional wives, basically. So I was thinking, yeah, that would be really cool. I kind of saw myself as a bit of an explorer and looking out for. I don't think Ghana is considered a place where people look for traditional wives, but it's great because the poorer people speak English as a kind of a national language here. I mean, language in Ghana, but over here in Jordan, where I look for the poorer people, they don't speak English, they speak Arabic, and so it's a bit harder. And the richer people are all spoiled, so yeah, I didn't really. And I thought it would be more fun to, it'll be fun to have a wife from a different culture. And I am actually a bit of a eugenics person. I kind of agree with Vincent. Like, I think that the poorer country. Well, actually, I don't agree with Vincent in terms of just marrying white people, but I thought, and I did mention it to my second wife. I think if you're in a poorer country, you're stronger. I actually mentioned when I was talking to my new father-in-law, I said white or Western jaws are becoming weaker because we're always eating really soft, well-cooked, perfectly, everything soft food. Whereas in Ghana, they eat bones and stuff and they're really tough. And so I like my kids to be tough. So there's all sorts of different reasons. Anyway, thank you very much for the stream. Thank you, Vincent and Mike and Claire, as always, and even Carol, white Muslim woman, and everybody else whoever made a comment in the live chat. Always appreciate your interaction. It's always fun and adds to the show. Thank you very much. Bye.
Bye.